Welcome back to part 6 of Pokemon Let's Go Eevee for the Nintendo Switch. In this episode, we defeat Erica. We do other things as well, such as catch some new team members, and more. But for the time being, we just do those two things for demonstrative purposes. Obviously, we battle trainers, and obviously, we go through the grass, but once again, you don't need to see that. You all know exactly what it is, and honestly, it gets quite boring after a while. I mean, it'll never get as bad as my early Pokemon stuff, back when I used to show off the grinding. Oh my goodness, I used to show the grinding in the episodes. I didn't even cut that out. That was crazy. It's one of those things where you look back at your old stuff and you're proud of it, but you also know that it could be better. And the Vulpix has finally evolved into a Ninetales. It knows Flamethrower, so that's all it needs to know. There's probably more I could do with the Vulpix, but this isn't a competitive run. This is just a commentary through the base campaign, and the base campaign of this game is already easy enough. I don't need to take that many extra precautions to win. This isn't a ROM hack. Still, one thing I don't like about how they made this game is all the censorship. I'm a rambling gaming dude. That's not what he said. He said, I'm a rambling gambling dude. He was a gambler, not a gamer. And I know why it happens. It's because of overseas laws. But honestly, at this point, who cares? I'm convinced, I really am, that the majority of the Pokemon audience is adults. I do not believe it's little kids playing this series. Maybe I'm wrong, okay? Maybe I am dead wrong. But based on how I see it, I don't know. Okay? But it's possible. Anyways, back to the actual game. We've been going through this, and overall, this route is, once again, a very bare-bones route. Still, it is quite the nostalgic route. It definitely feels like an actual route in a world, albeit a lot smaller, for the sake of not boring us to death with extremely long walking sessions. See, one of my issues with Pokemon Violet is that the reason there's so much editing in that series as opposed to this one, because don't get me wrong, this one still has editing, but nowhere near as much, is the fact that Pokemon Violet has so many, what I'm going to call Sony movie game walk sequences, where you're just walking and not really doing anything else. Or maybe you're using the Miraidon or the Koraidon, I guess, but for the most part, you're not doing too much. When the game actually gets going, it gets going really well. But here, it's just a 30-second loop repeated over and over again. It has the Halo mentality. You remember the old Bungie devs, the 30 seconds of fun loop. It's that, only on repeat. And I think that a lot of modern developers just forgot about the 30 seconds of fun trick that was used heavily during the Xbox, PS2, and GameCube era. But then again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the new stuff is better and I just am too blinded. I don't think so, considering that for the most part, my most predominant generation for playing games, especially online, would be the 360 and PS3 era. But I look back at some of those old PS2 games, N64, and I just think to myself, man, outside of graphics, it was so good back then. Now, don't get me wrong, like in every generation, there were some stinkers, because not every game can be good. If every game was good, then no one would have complaints. But the best of the old games, to me, tend to be better than the best of the new stuff. Obviously, there are exceptions. For example, I think that Mario Wonder is a modern-day 2D platformer masterpiece game. Whereas a lot of games today, such as Avatar, Frontiers of Pandora, are a shining example of why open world does not equal good. And in fact, open world, if done incorrectly, could be a detriment. I think that the Avatar game on the 360 is a far better game than Avatar on the Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5. When it comes to that, that's where it really gets me. Because sometimes it doesn't seem to be the case, and yet sometimes it is. But now we're going on to another section that they changed for this game again, and that is the drink for the guard. In the original game, you had to go up the department store, buy a water, soda, or lemonade, and give it to the guard. In Leaf Green Fire Red, you had to go into one of the buildings, find an old woman drinking tea, and she gives you a tea that you can give to the guard. And now in this game, Pokemon Trainer Brock, or Takashi in the Japanese version, gives you the drink to give to the guard. So no matter what version of Pokemon you're playing, you have to give this guard a beverage. So my question is, why not just make us buy the thing? Is it really that serious? Is it that difficult to do? I don't know. Now, I am gonna get the it's a kids game argument, but Pokemon has never been a brain-dead series until X and Y. Now, you could say, oh, but Nuzlocking X and Y. I'm not talking about challenge runs. No, I'm talking about base game, playing through it. This series has never been so brain-dead. You could say that they stopped being brain-dead with the Ultra games and Sun and Moon, but my issue with Sun and Moon and the Ultra games is that, yes, they're a lot harder to play through, but they're also just boring. I don't have much fun in it, and I think that boring is worse than bad. Mechanically, these Sun and Moon games are actually really good. They do a lot for the actual base game, but because of all of the hand-holding, I get bored. It's kind of like Metal Gear on the Game Boy, if you remember that. It really did feel like that. It just wasn't as good. So many sections of just the characters talking and talking, and so much hand-holding, that I got bored. I did finish the Ultra games. I finished Sun and Moon. But would I ever redo it? No! I would never redo it. Absolutely not. Okay, if I'm ever in a commentary for Sun and Moon or the Ultra games, know that I am not the one playing. Because damn that. Absolutely damn that. At least, if I'm doing Emerald, which might be done in the future, I'm not gonna lie, you'll know for a fact that I'm the one playing. Why? Because I think the game is good. And that's it. But that's besides the point. Now we're gonna go south, get into some buildings, talk to some people, and here is a moment where I was playing and I had an issue with my memory. You see, I was attempting to find a PC here, and I'm pressing A, but nothing's happening. You see, in the original games, you could actually get the PC there. Thing is, it was bugged. It was never supposed to be there. It's just something that the developers forgot to remove. But there, I thought that I could use the trunk like a PC, and maybe they would keep that in. But no, they didn't. They didn't do it. Game Freak don't have it in them to do that anymore. Now, some people say, but why are you advocating for keeping a glitch? Well, they could have patched it in. They could have made it a legitimate feature. An Easter egg of sorts that I think would have been really interesting. Also, that guy, it looks like he has some bomb curry right there. I'm not gonna lie. And the omu rice also looks great. It's one of those things that for some reason video game food, even though it just looks like a bunch of polygons, which, you know, duh, it is a bunch of polygons. For some reason, it just always looks appeasing because I know in the back of my mind I could never have it. It's just one of those things. But now we finally get to go into Erica's gym. The sleepy girl. Although I swear in the original she was supposed to be high. I think that was censorship. I can't confirm that, but that's what I think. I would have to reread the Japanese text to get a more clear understanding. Albeit, I'm not sure if that is the case completely. In addition, what you just saw there was me correcting the game. The censorship in this game is horrific. So I wouldn't support it if I knew that that censorship existed in the first place. I didn't know that it existed, so I supported it, but now I regret doing so. At least I still have the game. I can still play it. It's still Kanto, so it's still good. But it could be great. And it just isn't. Man, I'm just thinking about this gym with a free camera. Oh, that would be so good. That would be so crazy. But no. We have to wait until the wild area in Sword and Shield or Scarlet and Violet for a full game of open camera. Can someone do that, by the way? Can someone mod in an open camera for this game on Yuzu? Because I would love to check that out. I really would. Besides that, overall, this is pretty good. I really do like this game. And here is where the difficulty comes back to bite me. This game is not hard at all, and it really shows during this gym. Absolutely demolish everything without even thinking about it. And once again, I know that that's the point. It's supposed to be easy. It's a children's video game, but it gets to a point of insane proportions where you think it's gonna be crazy, but as you play through it, it gets easier and easier. But maybe that's just me. This game really doesn't require you to grind, though, at all. I don't think I've been grinding at all. I've just been going through the motions, and I've been having an easy time. Now, we haven't gotten to the point where I'm just gonna out-level everything, but we are going to approach that eventually, and you're gonna see it later when I do just out-level the entire game, including the champion. Remember, during my first playthrough, I was 20 levels above the champion. Let that sink in. 20 levels above him. That should not happen. That almost happened to me in Oras, except I deliberately went out of my way not to do side content just to avoid that happening in the first place. But it could have happened, and that's the scary part. X and Y at least had the decency to not make the experience share so broken, and you could turn it off if you really thought it was. But starting with Sword and Shield after, even this game, yeah, it kind of does take a dip. But man, I just like this game. It's such a nice game. It's such a good game that I just find myself enjoying it regardless of any faults with it. I struggle to find faults in this game outside of the lack of difficulty. I really do. That and censorship. The censorship is unexcusable. We know this series, how it's gone, what they've done in this series. I'm willing to bet that it is an American branch that's doing this, because there's no way. I would have to check the Japanese text, but I'm pretty sure that the American branch is actively censoring these games in English. Because BDSP actually does that. The dialogue in BDSP is different from the dialogue in Diamond and Pearl. And it's not just translation fixes. They actively change it, and I cannot support that. Thing is, I played BDSP for a Nuzlocke just to see what it was like, and I gotta give credit where credit is due. The Elite Four in that game is the greatest Elite Four in the entire franchise, no question. But it's also a part of a game that I have significant issues with. For the most part, the base campaign is stupidly easy. It gets to the point of there being no challenge for most of it. But at the same time, the Elite Four actually has some difficulty, so I gotta praise it. It's good. It's great. And I can't say anything against it. I actually did Nuzlocke Brilliant Diamond during my first playthrough. You know what? It's a really good way to have some challenge in it. I only lost 3 Pokemon, and I didn't lose any during the Elite Four. It was a hardcore Nuzlocke with level caps, set mode, no items. And I had a great time. But the thing is, I Nuzlocke because I like the series, I like the game so much that I lose any incentive to have that I lose any challenge in it. During my first playthrough, that shouldn't be the case. At least with Sword and Shield, that game, Nuzlocking it is freaking awesome. Actually awesome. And while I know that not everyone is about that, I am, because I did like Sword and Shield as games. Even just the base game, I think Sword and Shield on Switch is one of the better games. If I had to rank it, it would be Legends Arceus is first place, then this game, then Sword and Shield, then Scarlet and Violet. I don't even think Scarlet and Violet is that salvageable. I think that you would have a better time playing through any of the other games. And I'm just gonna say it, this story, while it is, you know, the basic of basic stories, at least there's an evil faction that actually seems evil. There seems like something we need to stop. The quest to become the very best is definitely here, and I do like that. Sword and Shield was just great in terms of the gameplay, but the narrative really took a nosedive. Chairman Rose was such a stupid final boss. Not even a final boss. I don't even think we fight him. I think we just fight Eternatus. Either way, it's just his plan made no sense if you think about it logically. He could have just waited one day. Or he could have pushed up the league finals one day later and just declared some sort of emergency. He has the power to do that. He would still give Leon his champion fight, and they would solve the Darkest Day situation together. Still, I am gonna say that for the most part, other than the story, I'm gonna go with the statement that it is really good for just the gameplay. Because the thing is that when we ignore story and just focus on gameplay, a lot of games get a lot better. A lot better. Sword and Shield definitely is a game that gets better when you ignore the story and just play it for the gameplay. The overall experience, mind you, is still, night and day between Sword and Shield and Scarlet and Violet. Sword and Shield's biggest sin is the trees and Dexit. But we know Dexit was a corporate decision. It wasn't because they couldn't fit all the Pokemon. They definitely could. Somebody called Acoustic Harmonia went into the math behind it and proved that you could do it. But still, we all know it's just so that they can sell Pokemon Home subscriptions and keep your Pokemon in there. Effectively legalized ransomware, and I gotta give credit because it is such a smart move at a business level that I kind of like it, but I also know in the back of my mind that's just a scummy practice and it actively goes against the consumer. But then again, the consumer is still at fault for transferring their Pokemon. Like, at this point, I've just been content to leave all my stuff in Sun and Moon and switch onwards. I'm just not going to transfer anything because I just don't care enough to do it. Maybe I could, but I really don't feel like it. Still, it's just a matter of preference at this point. And now, we are dealing with the next grass type for the gajillionth time. And still, as much fun as I do have in this game, like I said, the difficulty is just something that it's really pushed in your favor, not the enemy teams. But the actual game itself is just so well made. I just wish they balanced the game better. That's it. Just balance the game better. I know that you don't do it because the casuals will then quit. We know that. The casuals be casuals. But then again, they could just add difficulty select. I stand by there should be 4 difficulty selects in a Pokemon game. Easy mode, which is basically this game. Normal mode, which is most of the main series, except for X and Y and ORS. Just make those slightly harder. They would be significantly better, if you ask me. Then make a hard mode where effectively every boss trainer is treated like the BDSP boss trainers, where they give them perfect IV, perfect EV, competitive movesets, and hell items. And on the expert mode, all trainers should have the 6 team members, as opposed to less than that, so that they actually feel like boss trainers. And I don't mean boss trainer as in the Black and White 2 boss trainer, but rather boss trainer as in a in-game boss, like gym leaders or rocket members. And then lastly, there's balance mode, where everything will scale to where you are, and all gym leaders will have their Pokemon 2 levels higher than you, and then everyone else will be roughly on even footing with you. Same goes for wild encounters. They'll be at around half your level. I think that would be fair. But maybe it could be tweaked more. Obviously, it can be tweaked more. That's just how games work. And now we are challenged by Gym Leader Erica, the very, very sleepy gym leader, who we are absolutely going to demolish. This Tangela is actually really good. It actually survives the Sizzly Slide from Eevee, so I gotta give it credit. I gotta give it credit. But still, having two fire types go at it at once really does hinder its survivability. Look at that. Absolute ponage right there. And it really does not get better for Erica here. She sends out Whipping Bell, which I thought was Victory Bell, but maybe that's just something that they did for Pokemon Yellow? Maybe, I'm not sure. And the Weaving Bell is actually pretty good. But still, it goes down like a chump. Like a chump during this boss fight. And I believe there should be one more Pokemon that she sends. It's going to be... Or did she already send them all? Did I forget? No, I'm pretty sure she sends out something else. Yeah. Vileplume. And this Vileplume also goes down like a punk. It's really not that difficult. And even if I was doing single player, believe me, it doesn't change it that drastically. It's not. And that's it for Erica. I had a lot of fun with this boss, but at the end of the day, it was just mash A to win. She concedes that I'm remarkably strong, but this is also a case of even the original games had this issue where if you had the type advantage, you could absolutely clean house in every gym. But that's just one of those tropes that Pokemon will likely always have, even if I don't think it's great. But even then, just having, you know, suboptimal boss fights, they could fix that by giving them full teams of 6 competitive movesets, but they're never gonna do that. BDSP was the only time they did it. I praise them for it, but that's about it. Too many people complained, especially the casual market, and because of that, they'll never let us do that again. Even though I honestly think that that was probably their best decision to counteract all of the experience all and the forced friendship. I really do think that forced friendship, forced affection, and the experience all, like that, was so good. And because they countered it with competitive teams, it was just even better. But that'll be all for today. If you like this video, comment on this video, share this video. I want people to see it, and have a nice day.